Now, in a previous drawing demonstration video, I did a figure kind of like this in charcoal, and I apparently lost my video when I was doing a good bit of the face because I ran out of storage on my camera, and so I lost that bit right there. And when the video picked up again, the face was pretty much done. So I had a request to do a video about working just on the face. And so I've got another figure here that I've drawn, and it's about the same amount of completion as the previous one when I got to this point. I talk a lot about not spending too much time on one area, and you can see that things are kind of getting fairly complete right here, but there's not a whole lot of attention to the face yet. So I need to turn my efforts here to the face, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So you really kind of work on this area and talk about working on the face in a figure drawing. Now, the first thing to know is that this isn't portraiture. So when you're working on the face, it's not quite the same as working on a portrait or trying to get a likeness. You want to get an accurate face, and of course if it looks like your model, that's great, but it's a bit of a different purpose than an actual portrait painting. So we're not going to be concerned so much with getting a great likeness, but we'll see how it works. The main thing is to get good, accurate facial structure and anatomy. That's what I want to talk about now. So you can see here, look, I've got the face roughed in, and hopefully it's all correct, and the proportions are good. This is looking okay. And I've got some features in here a little bit. So one thing that's important to know is if you look at the entire face, and this particular one I have, the view is, the model is really staring just straight at me here. So we've got this straight on view, which is sometimes not the most pleasing view. Aesthetically speaking, if there's a bit of a turn or a tilt to the head, that's what we like most. But you do what you have, and you know, this can work. It can be a little bit simpler to try something like this, so that's kind of what we're going to see here. But some things to keep in mind as far as measurement goes. If you're looking at the face, and the face is we got a full view here, so we've got, you know, top of the head to the chin. Especially if the face is looking straight ahead or even down a little bit, what you're going to notice is that there are some important features to get here. So this important one we've talked about before in sketching out the head is this brow line. So here's the brow line, and as far as measurement goes, even if you're not quite sure about this, it tends to be true from the top of the head, especially if there's some hair, to the brow line, and then from the brow line to the chin is really about halfway. So that's an easy thing just to kind of put a little mark there and say, okay, halfway down, you got it. And so if I do some measuring right here, there's my top of the head to the brow line, and then there's like my brow line to the chin. And so it's pretty close there. And so you've got kind of half of the area for the facial features. And then right here from the brow line to the nose to the mouth to the chin is often divided up into thirds. So if I have, you know, a third here for the brow line, and a third for the nose, and a third for down here to the mouth. So it's just especially with the face coming right here, looking straight ahead, the features of the face can really just be suggested with lines. And see, I've just got straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. And that's all I need for right now as I start out. What I'm looking for is just to get things in the right place and have things where they need to be and have the proportions right. A big mistake that I see made by students is if they try to draw finalized details and things too soon. And that's really what we kind of want to avoid here. And so, especially with the face, when some people ask about drawing faces, a big thing is going to be don't try and draw what you think is there. Don't think, oh, you know, I'm going to draw an eye and make an eye shape, and then a nose and mouth and lips. You have to get away from the left brain way of thinking, and you really do have to just concentrate on the shapes and not try and label them in your head. That's the important part. And so I've just suggested here just a few areas here, just with these lines. Now I'm going to come back in and try and do things that are a little bit more final. As you can see, of course, the face is really small, right? So compared to my overall image, the face is fairly small. And then even according to like my drawing tools here, it's not really, the charcoal isn't made to be a great, really detailed art medium. So that's why we kind of keep things loose. If you want to do a really detailed, fine portrait, it would need to be a whole lot larger for working with something like charcoal or Conte crane or something similar. So I've got my areas kind of roughed in here, and I want to also try and think about the planes of the face. And that's what's really going to help. So you see I'm just erasing down. If you recall from previous videos, I've got a bit of tone all over here, and that kind of helps me to work with, have some mid-tone already, and as I erase down I can get to some highlights there. So what I'm looking at here is how to approach this from where we have it right now. So again, pretty much right in the middle. When I drew the face initially, there's a little hint of just what's left of the center line and this cross here with the brows. And so I'm just going to keep going here. I think the nose needs to be a little bit higher, and then we have a little hint of under the chin right there. But can you see how if you just kind of put in just these horizontal lines in the right way, all of a sudden you kind of have a face start happening. And that's really how you need to think about it. Just not think about what is happening under here. Don't think eye and pupil and iris and eyebrows and all that, but just get in these big basic shapes first. And so putting in just with horizontal lines, that's really going to help. So I'm trying to define here areas like the jawline, and I've pretty much got it in, but what I want to do is finalize it here. So I'm kind of working here, and there's a couple things make this a little bit challenging. One is we have a lot of hair, and so that kind of obscures some details and some features. So important things would be the ears, and those are pretty much completely obscured from what I can see. And even some of the edge of the head here. But we're going to do what we can. I've got a bit of the cheekbone visible here. This is the zygomatic arch that comes around underneath the orbit of the eyes, and that's our cheekbone area. And it's depending upon just the facial structure of your subject that can be, a bit more prominent right there. I've got a hint of the neck coming down. Remember, for the female model, we want a really a graceful, kind of beautiful, sort of thin neck, nothing too heavy. And I'm going to suggest that here. The true kind of edges of the neck are really sort of hidden in shadow, but I'm just suggesting this a bit here. Also, remember the jawline. We want to be fairly nice and petite. No big, heavy-handed chin or something. So just in general, as with most of the features of the female form, that's kind of how we want to think about it. Now, even though I'm kind of drawing these, I'm using straight lines because straight lines are easier to do than a curve. What I'm thinking here as I'm working on it is I'm going to come in and sort of give them a bit of a curve afterwards. And so I'm thinking about that now, but I'm just thinking more simpler lines and shapes at the moment. All right, so let's think a bit about the planes of the face, and that's what's going to help us here at this point. So with our light source of course is coming from the left here. It's a left and a little bit forward, and so it's hitting the model here. There's actually a little bit of cast shadow. So this is an interesting thing where the hair is coming down here and obscuring some of the face, but also casting a shadow on the face right about here. And we'll see that as I get further along. But we have really a shadow side on the right and then the highlight on the left. And as I've mentioned before, you want to keep that idea of highlights and shadows, you want to keep that consistent as you're working on your image. So let's talk a bit about planes of the face and how they work here. So I'm erasing out some of my tone that had come down. And in most normal lighting situations, the forehead's going to get a decent amount of light. So you see how I've got the forehead here being lit, and of course we have a bit of shadow coming from this side. There would be shadow anyways, the forehead kind of curves away from the light source, but then we have the hair that is giving us some shadow right there. So the bridge of the nose right here in between the eyes is very often in shadow. So what happens is the forehead comes out, the brow is the most prominent part right here, even on a female model, and then it is going to dip in by the bridge of the nose. And that means it'll usually be a little shadow right there. Now in most lighting situations, the eyes are somewhat in shadow. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little. And so we're going to sort of just shadow these eyes here. The orbit, that's the hole in the skull, it's actually a really big hole. It's concave, and the eyeballs sit in there. And so they are often in shadow there. So we'll kind of come down here a little bit. And then we have, of course, if the light's on this side here, we're going to have a cast shadow on the nose. And so the cast shadow is coming like this. And then with the cheekbone, the zygomatic arch, we're going to have a little shadow on this side as well. And very often what that gives you is a sort of triangular shape. You see that right there? Under really common lighting circumstances or situations, you'll have a triangular shape right in here. And that's, again, the zygomatic arch coming forward. And then here's the cast shadow of the nose defying this edge. And then as it turns away from the light, it gets shadow again. So this part right here is going to be very, very common. Different shapes and different sizes and proportions for different people, but again, that's a common thing right there. So again, shadow on the bridge of the nose, and this sort of shadow on the cheek with this sort of triangular highlight there. And we'll kind of move along here. The nose. The nose is actually kind of tricky and a bit challenging, and it gives students a good bit of struggle as they work on this. The thing to do with the nose is to not really draw it as you think it is. Don't worry about nostrils and little details. Often with the nose, the less you have in there, the better. Now we've got the kind of the middle, to the point of the nose right here. Very often that gets the brightest bit of highlight. There's going to be a highlight right there all along down the middle of the nose, even down to this point here. But notice how I'm not really putting much in there. I'm not drawing nostrils, anything worried about that too much at this point. The less you do there, the better, especially early on. If you make the nostrils too prominent, you're too worried about drawing them, the nose can sort of end up looking like a pig nose. And that's the main thing we want to avoid, especially on our female model here. Now, back to normal lighting situations. Under normal lighting situations, the upper lip is going to be dark. It's going to be in shadow because it turns away from the light. And the lower lip will catch the highlight because it turns forward. So again, remember, we are going up, down, up, down. And so under this lower lip, we have a shadow being cast by that same lower lip there. So I'm just going to try to put this in. And here's our shadow side of the face working there. There's sort of a cast shadow of the nose right there. So you can see how we've got this whole shadow side of the face. I'm trying not to get it too dark. We can adjust that. And then there's a little bit here, which is the Cupid's bow. And again, this little dimple or indentation kind of right under the nose. And then what happens here with the corner of the mouth, often there's like a little bit that hangs down here. And this is going to be sort of particular to each individual person. This is where you get some personality and some individuality here. But you can see what I've got here is pretty much, you know, the planes of the face just kind of roughed in. Often the highest highlight, the point on the lower lip is right here. If you imagine it in thirds, here's a left third, a middle third, and a right third. And this right third in this situation gets dark. See that? So there we go. I mean, that is, for all intents and purposes, that's the face right there. And under a lot of figure drawing situations, especially if you're working in kind of a quick timed kind of situation, this might be about all you need, right? I mean, there's the face. I can put a little bit of kind of dark right in here, and I can hint at the eyes a bit but this is kind of getting there, right? You can see the face is happening, and there's just not a whole lot that you need to do. What I'm going to be doing at this point really is kind of refining it. I'm going to take this bit of long strand of hair here and kind of work that down. As we talk about hair, notice how I'm not really there yet, but I'm not really drawing individual strands of hair. Often I'll see students kind of draw strand, 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 or you know, try and do that. You almost never really do that, except maybe a few wispy things on the end. You want to think about the hair like anything else. Just think of it as shapes. So, for example, right here we have a part in the middle, and we're going to have a highlight, or excuse me, a shadow on this side right here, because that's going down away from the light. There's a little highlight on this side, and then we have, as it turns away, it goes down again. So you can see how with value, light and dark, you really can show a lot about what surfaces are doing. Are they going up? Are they going down? Really depends on how they react to the light. So this side of the hair is going to be in shadow, right? There's our shadow side. And I'm just going to take my my charcoal pencil and then just do some overall very, very dark value. Well, not very dark, but a little bit darker than mid-tone over on this side. And you see how I'm just trying to fill it in solid? I'm not trying to draw strands of hair or anything like that. I'm just trying to get overall values. And we have some really darker stuff in here. Often, especially with long hair, you'll have kind of an outer portion, and we have the inside here that is going to be really dark. So you can see how it kind of comes here, and then here on the inside, we have the bit where it's almost your darkest value. There's no light hitting there at all. And so I'll just continue this a bit. As I get more to a final version, I'd put some more detail in here. But again, as I talk about, don't put in too much detail too fast. Really, we're just trying to get things kind of rough and get them working here. So we'll kind of put a little more on the neck. And this is kind of working okay. It's not finalized, but again, we're still in the process of kind of an underpainting or an underdrawing here. And so the idea is that it's going to kind of bit by bit sort of grow and evolve until it's finally done. But I'm not working on doing any finalized bit here yet. I'm just kind of jumping all over and thinking, you know, light and shadow, and hoping that this all will work for me here. So at some point, I'm probably going to need a tip that's a little smaller, a little finer for doing detail. This is a 2B, so it's not going to have a whole lot of strength to it, but it still might give me what I need. And then of course there's the kneaded eraser as I look at this. So I'm constantly looking at my source material, and I'm pulling out things here that are going to make this work. And I'm really trying, as I'm thinking about things and I'm working on stuff, I'm really trying, again, not to label anything. I don't want to think, ooh, nose and nostril and things like that. I just want to really think shapes. Where are my lights and my darks and my midtones? That's all I'm really thinking of here. I'm going to need to maybe come here, make that a little straighter here. And there we go. So really trying to suggest quite a bit, and I'm also looking to see where are the brightest values. Now, of course, my brightest values, I'm going to be using white to put those in, but I'm waiting a bit on there. I'm trying to see how much I can make happen with just the value of the paper and my charcoal. Now, something that's interesting is that I found that mixing, say, the charcoal and white, you think, oh, I've got my charcoal here and I've got some white. If I want something kind of light gray or medium, I can kind of work these together. I don't think these really blend that well, the charcoal and the white. That's kind of been my opinion. So If I want something that is kind of gray, I'm going to do it with just the charcoal, lightening the values and blending it and erasing and maybe some of the value of the paper. But I found that if you get too much of white kind of mixed there in with that charcoal, it just doesn't really seem to look that good. So anyway, just kind of my thought there. And I'm going to do a bit of erasing. Again, remember the eraser is kind of a drawing tool. It's a way of drawing reductively or subtractive drawing as I'm coming along here and making things do what I need them to do. So the nose is going to be pretty straight, especially in a situation like this. So I'm going pretty straight here, and then there will be maybe a little bit right here where the tip of the nose is a bit rounder. So I'm going to see what looks good to me here to use. I think I'm liking this one. And often on the very sides of my drawings, or the paper, I'll be wearing down my pencil a bit, or just trying to get it where I need it to go, and trying to make this happen here. So some things to kind of think about here, that especially if we get to eyebrows. So I'm just kind of suggesting the eyebrows with just a little bit of value here. I'm just kind of drawing them in. They're very much going to be sort of a line at this point. Not a lot going on, but generally speaking, you don't want to think of the eyebrows as hair or try and give them kind of any kind of fuzziness or hair or texture or anything at all. That's just kind of too much detail. With the eyes, so often less is more, and you want to see just how much of that eye you can suggest with just the barest minimum of drawing. One of the greatest portrait painters, John Singer Sargent, made a comment about eyes should be able to be done with just a few brush strokes. And I can't remember the number he said, but like 5 or 6, boom, 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 and there's your eye. You don't really want to kind of obsess over it and put an inordinate amount of detail. The more you suggest, as opposed to drawing every little thing, honestly, the better that tends to work. So when it comes to eyes, also when you think about the whites of the eyes, that's a bit of a misnomer because they're not really white. With a lot of situations, the actual value of the eyes, the white parts, is going to be just a little bit lighter than the skin tone around it. So they're not going to be pure white. And in most situations, you've got 4 whites of the eyes, right? You have one here, one here, one here, and one here. So a good rule of thumb to think about that is that they're all going to be a slightly different shape, and they all are going to be a slightly different color or value. So you can think of those as negative shapes, and then kind of work it from there. So again, I'm using my eraser as a drawing tool to sort of paint white, if you will, as I'm working here. Okay, and it's kind of coming along. It looks like I might want to drop this corner of the mouth here. That's looking a little bit too high. I want a little more space in here, so I can just kind of erase that out. Remember, I'm not drawing at the moment. I'm not drawing with the idea of everything is completely done and finalized. I'm just still trying to discover and explore and find out where things go. Now, there's something unusual here, and that's the shadow on this side of the face. But that's just because of our current setup with this long hair that's kind of hanging out over here, and that is casting the shadow on the face. So that's a little bit of an unusual situation, but you just kind of you take what you can get and you find a way to make it work here. What we're seeing right here, and I probably want to lighten that up, is I'm seeing an actual cast shadow. There's a big long strand of hair that's casting this shadow right here on the face, and it's working its way down all like that. And so I'm trying to get that to suggest that in there and make it look like a shadow. Also notice how it's curved. It's not straight. So what it's doing is it's reacting to the profile of the zygomatic arch as that curves there, this is showing you a bit of that contour. It's kind of curving around that cheekbone and then coming back down. So the face is coming together here. I'm going to erase a bit more. And I'm going to just kind of concentrate on things moving around bit by bit. Okay, so taking this upper lip down, this corner down a bit, that feels a little bit better to me. And just going to continue along here to the other side of the face. And there's not a whole lot that it needs. See, look at that. I mean, that lip is really kind of getting there. I want to erase some stuff right here. There we go. There we have it. Gonna do. I'm using a little bit of a timer on this one so that I don't run out of time as we're doing this. You can see that right there, coming along, and then a little bit here. Even though the side of the face is in shadow, I don't want to lose it too much. I want to still be able to keep some detail there. Now, the darkest parts of the shadow are going to be right here on the nose, because that's the nose is casting a shadow there. I'm going to lighten up a little bit this shadow on the bridge of the nose there. And of course we've got a little bit of shadow right here on the forehead, but our brightest part is going to be, you know, right along here. So I'm trying to work with my hard edges and my soft edges. I've got a combination of cast shadows and of core shadows here. And this edge of the cheek here, I really want to try and get that. It's a little bit too light right now, but I can always come back and finalize that. I want to get this nice, you know, very graceful look there as we go along. I think I might need to kind of make the chin a little more pointed. We don't want a big squared off chin here, so I'm trying to kind of take care of that. There's going to be a little bit of shadow on the underside of the chin. You know, some people have a little cleft there right in the middle, and some people don't. But you just kind of want to make that happen. So you see, as I'm working along here, it's just sort of gradually coming together, little bit by little bit. Often there's a bit of a curve with the upper lip. It's going to kind of curve down in the middle, then up towards the end, and then down back again. So we've got something kind of like this. The corners of the mouth often will sort of stretch down there a little bit. So we're seeing the face kind of come together. Notice how I'm not really thinking any detail yet. I'm trying to have it all come together bit by bit with nothing really happening too much or too quickly. Can do a little bit of measuring here. I think maybe this core of the mouth, it might be a little bit too far over, especially in a face that's staring straight at you. The edges of the mouth kind of line up with the middle of the eyes right there. And so this, we're kind of symmetrical here, even though no face is really symmetrical, but we're sort of symmetrical in the view, in that the face is really kind of angled straight toward me here. See how the blending stick can just take all these various bits here and sort of bring them together. Now again, I'm really not thinking portraiture. This is just, you know, too small really for portraiture, but I do want to get some indication of personality and mood here as I go along. And I think we'll try and get rid of some of this darkness right here on the neck. The neck is very much in shadow, and so the face kind of protrudes a bit. You see that. I think I need to add a little bit more here, right down here. This part here is feeling a bit too close, and you don't want to take things and kind of crowd them at the bottom. And so this is feeling a bit crowded. I'm going to see if I can open this up. Maybe erase just a little bit more on this jawline and a little bit more on the chin right there. What we're seeing here is a pretty good indication of how the planes of the face react to some pretty standard lighting. And we're seeing lots of good indications there about that sort of tell us a good bit about what's going in and what's going out, and just the contours of the face. And that's what highlights and shadows will do for us there. Okay, how's this? A bit better? As I'm getting here to some more detailed stuff, I thought it might be better to see what I'm doing, and I realized that maybe my hand was kind of covering up too much. So hopefully from here, this view, you can see a bit more of what I'm doing while I'm doing it. All right, so it's kind of coming along. I'm just trying to refine things. One thing I'm kind of a bit concerned about is maybe that the mouth is a bit either too long, or that I'm losing some information here that I need. We don't want to crowd this area out. This area from the lower jaw down here to the chin, don't want to crowd that with the mouth. And so what I'm seeing here is just making me a little bit concerned. And so I want to take care of that and make sure that that it's working okay for me. So I'm just trying to sort of carve back a bit of this this cheek here, a bit of this cheekbone. This particular model has some high cheekbones here, and I want to get this area looking good. And as I mentioned, this cast shadow of the hair right here is kind of interesting. It's describing the contour of the face. As it wraps around and goes down and kind of, back down to about here. And so I want to make sure I keep that there, and I don't lose it. There's a lot of subtle stuff happening right here that may be a little bit hard to do with the charcoal, because I'm really a little bit limited in this. Again, it is kind of a rough medium. And so as I'm thinking about that, I'm just thinking, how much can I suggest here and have that work. So we're going to give this chin just a little bit more right there. Just a bit more. There we go. It's a common problem to kind of crowd this part of the face. At least it kind of is for me. And so I want to make sure I don't really do that. That this area right in here, I don't lose all that's supposed to happen there. I think that means I need to kind of bring this out a bit down here as well. Remember our good friend the chamois? I can actually use this to wipe away some excess, although it's tough to do that in a very, very controlled, detailed manner, because I'm actually wiping away a bit too much, but then I can easily kind of go back and put that in. So I'm just going to try and widen that part of the jaw a bit more. Again, there's the neck. Notice how dark it is. Also notice how these edges are really kind of soft and undefined down here. And that's what you get when it's in shadow like this. See how soft that edge is? It's really hard to tell where the neck ends. And that's okay. That's kind of part of our view here. That's just sort of how that works. But the main thing, again, with the female figure is we don't want to have it look really big. There's the pit of the neck right there where the sternocleidomastoid will meet, and here's our clavicle. You can't really see it, the hair is covering it up, but I've just suggested that just a little bit as I'm doing some things here, just so that I can have some sense of what I'm doing. Even if you can't see the anatomy, it's often very helpful to put it in just so that you know that it's there. And it makes sure that you get other parts where they should be. Okay, I think really what I want to do is I want to change this angle. And this is where you get some of the individuality of the person, is this corner of the mouth. What's that doing? And what is unique about it? And in our case here, this one is really kind of angled. I had it a bit more straight, and I'm going to angle that a bit more. So I'm thinking I'm liking that. I'm using this charcoal pencil. Notice how I've got this nice flat edge for big things, but I can turn it on this edge right here and use that to do some fine lines. And I'm at the point here where I'm trying to do some fine lines, you know, about as detailed and accurate as you can get with charcoal. And it's a bit of a challenge just because I've got such a small area to work in. But what that means really is that I'm just trying to suggest things as opposed to really putting in super accurate detail and do a lot of stuff here. So let's go back to the eyes. I've left them alone for a while, and I want to kind of get back to them right there. That wasn't quite where I wanted that to go. But that's all right. Notice how easily this medium just kind of works and pushes in and out. And that's the great thing about using charcoal right here. So I think I'm going to lighten this bridge of the nose just a little bit. Right there. There we go. And keep it with the eyes. Now, one thing I'm seeing with these eyes, the eyes are completely in shadow because of the lighting, and especially because of the hair kind of coming over here, right over them. This big kind of line of hair right there. The eyes are really very, very, very shadowed. You know, I got a little bit of sort of highlight right there on the edge of that hair. So that hair is catching the highlight from the light source and then casting a shadow on that side of the face. So what that means is that I'm not getting a whole lot of eye detail that I would normally have. Now, often with the eyes, you know, everyone knows that little highlight right there on the eye. I'm not seeing it in my source material here, and so I'm dealing with a really bit of a dark area here in the eyes. But you know, that's all right. You do what is there, and I would caution against you know, putting something in there that isn't. Don't kind of think, oh, the eyes have this, and so I've got to put it in. That's just not the case. It's you look and you see, what does your setup have? You know, whether it's a photo or a live setup or whatever, you look and you see what that case has, and you just do there. So you can see these eyes are very dark. I'm trying to keep it that way. So the whites of the eyes are there, but they're not going to be very light at all. They're going to be much darker than in normal situations. So I'm trying to pull this back a little bit with my eraser. You see that? But they're going to be really fairly dark. And that's just our setup. That's how things are going here. And often with the eyes, you'll have a bit of a line right here. Here's the pit of the eye, where the tear duct is, and there's a bit of a line right there. And I'm not seeing it a whole lot here, but often it's kind of hidden by the shadow from the nose. So right there, that's kind of happening, okay? And I'm also trying to kind of squint at my source material and make sure that I'm getting the overall image of what's happening and not just concentrating, getting lost in a detail. I'm actually starting to get into a little bit of detail area here, and that's fun, but I just want to make sure that the detail isn't overriding the big picture, that it's not more important than the big picture. Right? So I'm going to pull out a little bit of white of the eye here, and a little bit there, and kind of put in this pit. Now, the thing to avoid with the eyes is sort of that standard eye shape that we can all draw. Anyone, even people who are artists, can draw kind of an almond shape with a dark circle in the middle. You know, that's really not the eye. Even though right here, that's almost what we have. But I'm really trying to avoid thinking of it like that, and look and see the sort of individual nature and the particulars of what's going on here. So again, we see how dark those eyes are, and wanting to keep that. And in some drawing situations, you might find that, you know, the eyes are almost all in shadow, and sort of like a mask that cuts across here. And you know, hey, that's fine. That's how it can work. So I'm trying to define this area of the face. Again, there's the hair going here. I've got this dark area right in there. I'm using my 6B, my darkest charcoal for that. And just trying to refine things as we go. So in keeping with the idea of core shadows, there's a core shadow kind of right here, and we're getting a little bit, perhaps a little bit of reflected light right here along this jawline. So that's lightening it up a bit, so I can pull that out somewhat. And I might even take that and just accentuate it a bit more, just so it's not too dark. I don't want to get anything that looks too dark right there, and want to kind of keep keep my dark shadows, but not have them so dark that I'm losing important details in the face. So we've got some hair that's kind of flipping over here, and then we've got this hair coming out. You see that whole kind of dark area in there. And by lightening this up a little bit right along there, I'm just kind of pulling out a little bit from that shadow, and just giving it just a hint more detail. So this is the idea. You know, you can do things that are not exactly what you see. That's the point of being an artist, is you're improving on it. You're making what you want this to be and what it needs to be. And sometimes reality doesn't give you that exact source that you want it to be. So you kind of come in and make your changes there. So you see I'm developing the face a bit more, and I'm kind of going about this at a slow, meticulous pace, but you know, that's all right. This is an important part here. I've done figure drawings where everything looks great, and then the face somehow just doesn't quite come together, and that's always a bit disappointing. So we want to have this face look all right, because it really is, you know, is the most important thing, right? And so I've got this hair kind of coming down here. I'll kind of bring that down a bit more. And I think I may need to, in this case, in my subject, the hair is kind of almost crossing over into this eye here. So I want to lighten this up a bit. Maybe get my chamois and just pull out, wipe off as much of this charcoal dust as I can. There we go. I'm going to pull that out right there. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm looking for now. So you see just how nice and flexible this medium is. So the hair kind of covering up the eyes just a bit is going to be kind of interesting. It makes this look just a little bit kind of mysterious there, and that's going to help. Now, as I'm looking at things, I'm trying to notice detail here, look at my source a lot, and kind of come back. The edge of the nose here, this nostril, kind of seems like it's going out a bit too far. Like her nose is a little bit wide. I want to pull that in just a bit. There we go. There's probably some detail there in the nose that I'm not that worried about getting because of this small area. With it being so small, the more I'm just kind of suggesting with it as opposed to drawing everything, that might be a little bit better. So much with the nose, less really is more here. And notice I'm pulling out just a little bit of light there above the brow. Again, the brow is sticking out, so it gets a little bit of light. And this also might be the top of the eyebrow, that hair kind of catching a little bit of light there. So I'm not too concerned with what it is, but just adds a little something. Now I'm to the point here where I'm kind of limited in my values because I've just been working with the paper and with the charcoal. So I'm going to come in and put some white in at this point, and we're going to see kind of how that might help me as I try and take this a bit more to completion. So remember, I'm erasing out as much as I can because I don't really want to take my white and mix it with the charcoal there. And as I'm looking and seeing where my highlights are, got right here and up here. So we got that, and then a really strong highlight right here at the top of the nose, very near the bridge. And so it's almost just a straight line, just right down there. That gives me what I need, and that can kind of define this area a bit more. Now I've got a smaller white here, and I can put in some very particular details here. This is the type of thing that you can really sharpen or kind of carve down to make this nice and sharp. My big Conte crayon is kind of big and blunt here. So I'm popping to this for a moment. Now often what we're going to see is there's a little bit of white highlight that goes along the top of the upper lip. And so I'm seeing that kind of right along here, and that can help define this a little bit. And that goes straight up here, kind of towards the Cupid's bow, and maybe just a little bit in there. So you can see as I'm putting in this white, it's kind of really bringing a few things together, as now these parts are kind of popping out, and I'm getting a bit more of the dimension in the face that I want to, with a bit more contrast. Now often, especially with female lips, you're going to have a highlight, and I'm going to put this one kind of right here. See that highlight on the lower lip, and that's going to sort of help define that right there, and kind of move along a little bit there. All right, so the lips are kind of shiny. Maybe she has some lipstick or something, but you often catch a little highlight right there. And then we have some highlight here on the chin. That definitely needs to come forward right about here. I'm going to try and use this to kind of define this edge a bit. It's mixing a bit with the charcoal, kind of getting gray. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I always want to make that line there a little bit more definite as we kind of come down here. I don't want to lose the line of the chin. Often right here in the mouth, right about there, we'll get a little bit of a highlight as well. And so I'm going to kind of put that right in there. See that? And that will kind of sometimes follow along with the lower lip, kind of define the edge of that lip, and go down there. All right, so it's kind of working. I want to lighten up the shadows, getting a bit much right here, and I want to make sure it doesn't become too overbearing. I mean, I want that cast shadow kind of follow along here, but I don't want to lose the contour of this jaw. And so I'm using this to kind of bring that back in just a little bit there. There we go. So this is really detailed stuff. And what's interesting is, I haven't been doing a lot of detail for the rest of the figure, but then this that's kind of the point of this tutorial, right? It's a bit more about working on the face. And okay, that's a bit much, but often you have like maybe a little bit of a shadow right there. And I'm going to kind of clean up this area here, right below the nostril. I've got a pretty well-defined area, and this one is working quite well for me because I need some really fine, small lines as I do this. All right, got that. Yeah, and then right along here, I've got some highlight that kind of comes right there and kind of takes that nose and brings it right there into the face. Okay, kind of coming together. It's doing what it should. There's not a whole lot more to do on the face. Again, with a figure drawing like this at this size, you just got to suggest a few things and then just make that work for you, and then go with it. So the face is definitely much more complete than the rest of the figure, and sometime pretty soon I want to turn my attention back to that. So as I'm putting in these brighter highlight areas, that tells me maybe this bridge of the nose is a bit too dark. So I can just kind of erase in there very lightly and bring that up. We don't want it to be too heavy and overbearing. Just a little bit of suggestion of that. And often we might have a little bit of extra highlight kind of like right here on the other side. There's often just a little bit of a dip right there in the middle of the forehead. And so we have like a little bit of shadow, very, very subtle, and then it's a little bit on the other side, kind of like that. So we're seeing that just a little bit, and I may even take my Connie crayon and just suggest a bit of that kind of highlight right along there. I don't know if I need to do any highlight here on this really important kind of triangular portion of the face. I could do a little bit, but it's really kind of in shadow and really kind of soft back there. And you just want to look and make sure and sort of see what's going on here. I want these highlight areas to pop, and don't want this part on this shadow cheek to kind of compete with that. I want to get kind of the right contrast and values so it's all happening. So there's a little bit of like selection of eyelid and what's happening under the eye. Notice how I'm not putting in any eyelashes. I've seen students draw eyelashes, and gosh, you just almost never do eyelashes. There's just kind of no need to, especially at this scale. Just anything like that, you might suggest them, and of course on a female model you might have eyelashes that are thicker and longer, but you really just want to suggest that and not do much more than that. Okay, yeah, looking okay here. I'm kind of losing this edge of the jaw, and I don't want to, so I'm going to try and bring that back in with this white pencil here, just a bit, just so again that I don't lose it. I kind of want to keep that edge right along in there. There we go. And I'm going to try and erase out some of this. And often this chin will catch a bit of reflected light. So the chin and this, the bottom of the jaw here will catch some reflected light. We've got a lot of highlight areas right down here, and that's going to bounce up and hit the bottom of that chin. And so that's what I'm trying to suggest right here. And that can kind of bring that forward so you don't really lose it too much. And then I can keep a bit of the darkness under here. I'm trying not to outline things, but just trying to think of, you know, the fills and the areas underneath them, and sort of make that happen. And you can see how much I can do with this blending stick by moving things around and adjusting them. I think we need to put a bit more here with this bottom lip and extend the mouth a bit more. You want it to be where it's supposed to be. So again, often it lines up with the middle of the eye, and this one seems like on this side it's a little short, right? It's a little longer here. So I'm just going to extend that a bit more, knowing that if I go too far, I can kind of bring it back. And this is a really crucial part. What you do with the corners of the mouth really can say a lot about the expression that that your model has. Is it a bit of a smile? Is it a smirk? Is it wistful? Is it whatever? I mean, just tiny little things can do that. Again, that's something you worry about more with portraiture, but notice how just a little of changes can sort of change really what that looks like. Now I'm going to use my eraser and erase and just bring out a little bit of something there underneath. So we don't want to lose that there. If it's too much, I can get my smudge stick and just kind of bring that back in. But that's what's great about this medium, is that you really can just kind of fine-tune it and do quite a bit. And if it's not quite right, you can adjust it and move it around. I think I need to suggest just a tiny bit of the nostril over here on this side of the nose. So see, I'm just kind of erasing that out. And so we're getting a little bit of that. Now I probably should go back in and maybe kind of darken around there. But see how you just don't need a whole lot here to do the nose. I'm really just trying to suggest just really small little delicate things. And at this scale it's actually kind of tough, right? So I'm trying to get just the right little bit of blending and values to make this work. And sometimes it's just sort of a little bit of a push here and there, and then once you got it, okay, that's it, leave it alone. But again, it's a very flexible medium, so we can do quite a bit there. Now this side here of the Cupid's bow, notice I have that little dark area right under the nose. This one is really catching a lot of highlight. So I'm going to suggest that and put that right in there, and then make sure that I kind of see that same amount right here. I'm trying to be happy with the nose here, and I'm not sure that I'm quite satisfied with it yet, but maybe eventually I will be. I'm grabbing my 6B and just kind of easily putting some nice darker values right along in here. I'm going to have my darkest values happen. A little bit darker right under there. It's actually pretty dark right along in here. So a little bit of drawing with that, and then sort of smoothing it out with the smudge stick there. But if something's not quite working, I'm erasing to bring some parts back in. I wanted to find that lip a little bit. So there's a lot of back and forth. It's kind of a lot of back and forth. And hopefully at some point I'll be happy with it and get it right. But this is, this is pretty close to being done here. As I said, this isn't portraiture, so I'm not that worried about how accurate of a likeness it is, but is it a good solid face? Is it going to match with the rest of my drawing here? Is it going to detract from my drawing or kind of add to it and top it off? And so I think so far we're doing okay. It's kind of working here. Really trying to think subtle little details and to suggest perhaps a bit more than I'm actually drawing because of the smallness of the area there. Alright, that's feeling pretty good. Getting pretty close to being done, at least on the facial features. Now I should probably take a look at the hair.